So over the weekend, Newsweek published a mind-numbing opinion piece titled "How Hot Girls Became the Right's New Obsession." And to simplify this concept for you, they just interviewed a bunch of bitter academics.
Yes.
To ask them why men are into hot chicks and make them into mascots for whatever thing or idea or movement they have.
You know what it is that back in the 90s and the early 2000s, hot chicks wasn't a political statement. Stuff Magazine, FHM,
Maxim.
Playboy, Maxim. Hot chicks were a universally accepted practice here in America.
I was reading through this and I was like just dreading, like, please don't mention that ultra right beer calendar.
Did they do it?
No,
Did they bring? They didn't bring up the calendar
Thank
gate.
God they did not bring up the ultra right dad beer calendar, because I just that would have been curtains for me. Like, I would have lost my mind. You would just find me rocking back and forth in the corner of a padded cell somewhere, and it would be over for me. So
You're
they
like,
say
I can't do it.
It all began with Sydney Sweeney's cleavage, as most things do. This was back when Sydney Sweeney appeared on SNL, and she hosted the show for that night back in March. And then Richard Hanania, a right-wing podcaster, tweeted out an image of that SNL appearance saying, "Wokeness is dead." And apparently Sydney Sweeney's boobs killed it.
That just made it solid. That's it. Yep.
Yeah, so it all started with Sydney
internet.
Sweeney, and Sydney Sweeney is being branded the first iteration of the conservative hot girl, which basically means that a bunch of conservative men on the internet took the image of this hot chick and made her into an honorary mascot for their political ideology without asking her.
I'm not gonna lie.
One way or the other.
Whenever
No consent?
No consent.
Whenever this happens, I always feel better for whichever poor celebrity just gets like co-opted into some movements that they have no desire or knowledge about.
Well, here's the thing. I asked you, who do you think Sydney Sweeney is voting for? And you said, I don't think Sydney Sweeney is voting for anyone.
I don't think she votes.
And I was like, that's such a good point, because I don't think she cares who you think she's voting for.
Like, in my mind, somebody asks her who she's voting for. She's like, president. She's like, that's the really important one, right?
Yeah. And like, it's funny because she knows how to pretend that she's stupid.
She's not.
Yeah,
She's
she
very
not.
business savvy, right? That's even better. So there was this article. It said Sydney Sweeney practically begged SNL
I
cast to
heard
make
that.
jokes about my.
Right. They pointed out that Bowen Yang, one of the SNL actors, said in an interview about Sydney Sweeney's appearance on SNL, she was actually really the one pushing for all of the jokes about her body, because, you know,
She knows she found
that's smart.
that she
was
knows
in the
what
middle
her
of
market
Yeah.
is.
She knows where her audience is. She knows she was in the middle of one of the biggest media pushes of her life, and it was now or never. Go for it.
So this says Sydney Sweeney and other conservative hot girls don't necessarily have any tangible involvement with politics.
Even that, it's not fair to
But-
call her a conservative hot girl, because now you're labeling her as some type of right-wing person, when, like I said, she very likely is like, I like it even better if she's like, I like that behind the scenes they're all mercenaries who just work to accomplish their goal. Like, she's probably a lot smarter than you give her credit for. But in my mind, Sydney Sweeney doesn't vote. She's just like,
I honestly wouldn't guess that she cares about the election.
Yep.
Yeah. But the conservative hot girls have been claimed by right-wing public figures as their own, whether they appear to like it or not. So they're being whisked away like Persephone into Hades. I made that part
Yes.
up. But the conservative hot girl isn't a particularly new phenomenon, according to a professor
In the
named
UK too.
Victoria Can. She told Newsweek women have been positioned through the lens of the masculinist imagery in conservative populist politics for a very long time. Now, I like to think that I'm, a relatively intelligent person, maybe a little bit smarter than the average Joe Schmo 32. I don't know what that means. I can read, and I don't know what that sentence means.
I don't know what masculinist means.
And as masculinist imaginary. The lens of the masculinist
know.
imaginary. And she's in the UK. Why is freaking UK broad talking about
Yeah, she's talking about our politics. Shut up.
F off, lady.
Mark Safe from British Opinions since 1776.
So
We won, bro.
another professor, Amy Tatum of Bournemouth University, told Newsweek that, quote, this focus on hot girls is a way for the right in the U.S. to fight back against perceptions of wokeness. Holding up women in a sexualized fashion could be a tactic to reinforce gender stereotypes around women's appearances.
Again, a whole lot of words.
It's a whole lot of words and not a lot of
What
meaning.
it is that like Hollywood's focus on body diversity has kind of in a lot of ways destroyed their ability to focus on traditional beauty. It's why when you watch movies now, the women all look a certain way and they have to talk about body positivity, they have to talk about the male gaze, but then when they go to movie premieres, they're all dressed kind of hoish. And guess what? That's fine. You're allowed to dress hoish. You, however, do not get to control how your hoish clothes are perceived by others. What Sydney Sweeney has done is she does all of the same things you do, but tells men, look, I don't really care if you look at me a certain way. That's fine. Whereas everyone else is then shamed. It's like when the woman wears a push-up bra and then flicks you on the nose for looking. Look here, but don't look.
One of the right-wing commentators that they sourced in this piece said that we live in a nut vice culture, which essentially just means we're squeezing the life out of every man's ball sack until they are squeezed into submission.
You will one day live in a world of longhouse communism.
You will not look at the boobs.
Nope.
Okay? So they also mentioned another conservative hot girl who has been unceremoniously made a mascot for the right wing is the Hawk Tuah girl, Haley
Number 3
Welch.
podcast in the world, guys. She went viral recently for her long rant about
engineering process of the
St.
bridges.
Miles. He said, my YouTube has been throwing me a lot of off-subject shows.
Yeah,
I
man.
understand what you be, Brett.
Yeah, so what used to happen, this used to happen on Instagram to me a lot too, where on Sundays, my For You page would just look nothing like my Monday through Saturday For You page. It was like they were tinkering with the
experimenting
algorithm
on
on
you.
Sundays, yeah.
They say that Haley Welch from Tennessee has no obvious link to any political party, but this hasn't seemed to matter. The top comment on an Instagram post of Welch's, where she is posing in a red and white star-spangled cowboy hat, reads, "We did it, internet. We finally made the right person famous."
This is because the left inherently hates America, and anybody who doesn't hate America is branded as right-wing.
Yeah, there's a genuinely simple explanation for each and every one of these examples they've brought up. But of
Also,
course, these women in academia, burrowed in the depths of academia that they're interviewing to make sense of all this, aren't part of the real world, so they don't understand how normal people think.
Again, 20 years ago, being a hot woman was not a political issue because you were allowed to be a hot woman and you were allowed to like looking at hot women.
This professor said Sydney Sweeney and Haley Welch have actively distanced themselves from right-wing politics.
I listened to one of her
but have nevertheless
podcasts.
become entangled within them because of what they represent, not what they actually think.
Well, she's on on the Paul Brothers network, and the Paul
pretty
Brothers are
political.
both fans of Trump. Okay, but I listened to one of her podcasts, and it was the most inane.
Oh yeah.
Look, it was very clearly not designed for me to watch. It was like a bunch of women talking about a bunch of stuff that made no sense to me. There was nothing right wing about it.
So
that's
the
for
podcast
sure.
is meant to appeal to women?
Yes, it was literally like she had on.
Who would have thought?
She had some
Woman
guest. I
podcast.
think this lady was on The Bachelorette or something, and she didn't even introduce her. She just showed
It's
up.
just
and
understood that you're supposed to know
to know who it
that
was, and they just
Yeah.
started talking about dating and stuff, and it was just not for me. There was nothing right wing about it at all.
Well, there's
She
something
didn't-
right wing about not being a deranged freak.
She
these
didn't
days,
come out
so.
and say the Federal Reserve is a result of the. She didn't start talking about fractional reserve banking.
Actually, you know what? There is something to be said for this. It's just not in this article. I see chicks on Twitter posting selfies all day, every day saying like, I like drinking raw milk and I don't trust the government. Anyone willing to impregnate me? Like, that's, I see posts like that so often.
It's like the...
And
I don't...
the women that they're referencing here, they're not doing that. So that's great.
I did like the one video that went viral for like 6 months where the woman, she's like, it's a woman comes up, she goes, she's got 12 guys in her DMs telling her she's beautiful. Send her illegal firearms.
Stand out. Do something that makes you unique.
Yes. Look, it was not, this is a result of over-politicization, right? It was not controversial 20 years ago to be a hot woman or to be liked for being hot. But you know what happened? 20 years went by, and all of those women that posed on those magazine covers now talk about how they felt objectified and how they were forced to pose in positions they didn't really like and do things that they didn't really want, and the attention made them uncomfortable. So in a lot of ways, I look at the way that we've taken those things that were so critical to the culture in the 90s, in the early 2000s, and the way all of them have been torn down and shown to be less than what they are as a form of destruction for the country. The country you loved isn't what you actually thought it was. It was that quote that you always hear, America was never that great.
Yeah.
Right.
Lies.
Well, we had Baywatch, so it was.
Yeah.
Well,
Amen.
Amen.
there is something trashy about it. I think a lot of people have pointed out how over-sexualized marketing has become in recent years, where you see an ad for like a purse or I don't know, whatever it is, and it's just a naked chick, and you're like, why is this necessary? Like, it does kind of feel like sexualization is being thrown in your face these days.
But think about,
to the point where it's distasteful, and you know, it is kind of marketing 101. Like, put thing you are supposed to buy,
put a girl on
next to hot chick, and it kind of lights up the right areas of your brain and
you go
reward
to Target
systems.
now. You go to Target now, you don't see like hot women wearing the clothes. You see women that look like and the funny thing is 20 years ago, the right-wing people would have been the one saying, you should not be doing that. Playboy's bad. Cover up. Like what it is now, they're blaming the right for what the left was doing in the 90s and the 2000s.
They're blaming the right, ironically, for moving left.
Yes, they are.
And it's sad because it just means that like both sides have been morally hollowed out. We have another 20 from Viperus, I think. It's been proven over and over again that conservative and liberal straight men, straight women, gay men, and lesbians all prefer watching / looking at attractive men and women. Only people who don't like it are the far left. Yeah, that was another aspect of this that they discussed in the piece, is that it's really just people reasserting the idea that beauty standards exist and that they should exist and they shouldn't be actively attacked.
And it's never because that person is good at their job. It's because when you write the review for that movie, you get to say, look at this ugly representation. Look at how normal this person looks. Here's another fun fact. You watch any network television show in the last 20 years, sure, the stars of the show might look like above average, but most actors, you watch a crime procedural, plenty of people who just look like a slightly above average version of a normal guy. Like, I remember making a tweet back in like 2017 about this scene from the show Covert Affairs about this guy. He's like balding. He kind of looks like Xander Berkeley. I'm like, I bet you that's what actual spies look like. He if you put that guy in a different outfit, looks like he changes your oil.
You know what the feminists in all of these universities would probably say to that is that the actresses don't get the same privilege.
That is inherently untrue. If it was not true, Margot Martindale wouldn't be such a big actress. Sorry, you're wrong.
Don't let her see this.
Yeah.
They said there's something titillating about seeing a beautiful young woman spouting right-wing slogans. Thank you for marketing lesson 101, Catherine Rottenberg of the University of London.
There's something
Another UK lady?
They're all British for some reason. This is the craziest part, though. Catherine Rottenberg added, I am all for having lots of smart, articulate, and good-looking women as spokespeople for movements.
As long as they're covered up like it's Sharia law.
Wait for it. But We need a wide range of faces, ages, and body shapes. That's not beauty.
Make it
That's
a wide
not beauty.
I'm completely fine with the wide array as long as the wide array is all hot. Sure.
Yeah.
No, but that's the point. Like, that completely flies in the face of the idea that objective beauty standards even exist.
Like, if I wanted to look at normal people, I'd just go out into the real world and look at normal people.
She said some people are considered conventionally beautiful, but when you have a pattern where hot girls are the faces of the movement, and when they're using tropes of bikini shots as a way of sending a particular kind of message, then that feels extremely regressive.
Is she on her way to church? This sounds like a conservative woman in the 90s. Is she about
Sounds like
to
a
tell
suffragette.
me? Is she about to tell me that I need to go to church and purify my thoughts?
But also, these ladies are not—they're not spokespeople for anything. They're not iconic, at least that I know of.
They're famous in their own right.
Yeah.
You know, Sydney Sweeney's famous
Yeah.
in her own right. She's not just a mascot. And, you know, for what it's worth, Hawktua Girl is famous in her own right, too. She's not actually seen as a political mascot either. She has her own thing going on.
Nor is she really inherently seen as sexual, despite the catchphrase.
No, she's not. He said, these aren't just hot women. They're white women.
Oh, son of a bitch.
I forgot. Nobody liked Jessica Alba back in 2000. Everybody thought she was ugly. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a narrow and conventional definition of
Nobody
sex appeal
liked
and
Brandy,
hotness.
who we just talked about earlier. Nobody liked Brandy.
Haley Bailey or
Halle
Berry.
Bailey.
Nobody likes her.
Yeah, no one
Halle
liked Jennifer
Berry.
Lopez.
No, all of these people were never liked. I'm sorry.
No one liked Beyonce.
You freaking whites.
It runs counter to cultural change, reflecting an expansion of beauty standards to be more inclusive in terms of body size, race, and ethnicity, for example. It's all so tiresome. So they say politics is show business for ugly people.
Yeah.
I shudder to think what academia is.
Oh, jeez.
These people are ugly inside and out.
It's ugly business for uglier people.
And they're all coming up with the most verbose way to say what we already knew, which is that hot women saying something that you agree with equals good. I mean, it's just, that's marketing.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.